Now let's look in detail regarding the contract law. That was a forerunner of the law. The basic object of formation of contract law is to ensure that the rights and obligation of the two parties which enter into contract are being honored. That is, justice has been provided to both sides of the parties. Legal remedies are available to the parties in case of failure to perform an agreement which has been entered into by the parties. This is the main objective of contract law. It is relating to contracts in India. The contract law is laid down in the Indian Contract Act 1872. The act is nearly 266 sections. The sections are divided so you have a general principles of law of contract from 1 to 77. Sale of Goods Act is in 76 to 124. Special kinds of contract regarding bailment, guarantee, etc. are being stated in the 125th to 238 sections. Regarding partnership, the sections are 239 to 266. Thus, the Indian Contract Act has 266 sections in it. Law of contract. What is, or a definition of law of contract? It is a branch of law which determines the circumstances in which a promise or an agreement shall be legally binding on the person making it. There are a lot of examples regarding the law of contract, because this is quite evident, or most of us come across regarding the law of contract. For example, while we are going to a library, video library, and when I am taking a video, or going to a library and taking a book, when I am booking an orchestra, I am taking a taxi. These are all contracts which we enter into. Once I fail, the law comes into act. Definition of the act. A contract is an agreement to do or not to do an act. It is legally binding and it is enforceable at law. Every agreement and promise enforceable at law is a contract. Thus, contract is basically two elements which is very clear from the definition. One, it has an agreement, and the other is enforceability at law. Thus, there are two elements of a contract which is derived from the definition. One is agreement and the other one is enforceability at law. Thus, each and every agreement which is enforceable at law, we could call it as a contract. It is defined under section 2E, which says every promise or every set of promises forming consideration for each other. A promise is defined in section 2B as a proposal when accepted becomes a promise. That is, there are a lot of proposals which we come across. I say I am ready to sell my house for 250. It is only when I give it with a proper consideration or with a proper element of all the contracts are imbibed in it, you could actually call it a proposal. Otherwise, it's just a mere invitation. There must be a proposal or offer by one party and its acceptance by the other for making an agreement. So it would be hardly a one-sided affair. You need both the parties to consent at the very same thing for making an agreement. Thus we say an agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance. That is, we should have a valid offer, and when it is a consent which is given or the acceptance of the other party which is given, normally you call it is a agreement. This is one of the maxims which come across always, as to all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contract. For example, Mr. Vijay and Mr. Singh. Mr. Vijay invited Mr. Singh for a party. Mr. Singh accepted the invitation. You could not say, I could not, or if Mr. Singh would not make it to the party, you could hardly say he did not honor the agreement, because it is merely a social invitation, or it is a social agreement between Mr. Vijay and Mr. Singh. It's hardly a proper agreement. A famous case which we note here is a case between Balfour versus Balfour. When Balfour was employed in Ceylon, because Mrs. Balfour, owing to her ill health, she could not make it to Ceylon. So she asked him for a monthly payment which Mr. Balfour has promised. That was in and around £30. because she was settled in Britain. But Balfour could not honor the statement of £30 per month. Mrs. Balfour later sued Mr. Balfour for the same, but it was decided that it was just a domestic agreement between Mrs. and Mr. Balfour, so it could not be taken as a valid agreement.